Browns fans, Spencer German, Anthony Moeglin with you before the Browns kick things off with the Baltimore Ravens here in about 30 minutes behind me at Huntington Bank Field. And it's an interesting game because normally we'd be coming into this one feeling like the Browns have no shot given how things have gone this year. But there's a lot of interesting developments that have played out over the last week. Change of quarterback, which obviously came down after Deshaun was hurt last week. The change in offensive play caller, which stunned, I think, everybody. And I also think, Anthony, and I don't know that we should this can be undersold either. When a team or a franchise or just sports in general, like we see teams experience loss, right? And sometimes it has some weird spiritual effect on teams and they somehow play differently and maybe it sort of inspires some sort of victory here today. And if you guys don't understand what I'm talking about by now, of course, we're alluding to the man who was on our opening slide, Jim Donovan. Tragic news that he passed away yesterday, and the team has already done some things to kind of honor him. There's been a lot of things said, so many different notes on social media from those who were close to him, worked with him, family members. Just as a lifelong Browns fan that you are, Anthony, just what does Jim Donovan mean to you? And, as we try to encapsulate what he also just means to this fan base.
Yeah, I mean, that was gutting yesterday. I was down at Ohio State when I got a text from just a bunch of my buddies like, holy cow, like you kind of knew the writing was not on the wall, but when he wasn't able to attend his Hall of Fame ceremony a couple weeks back, it was like, uh-oh, that's not good. And unfortunately, if he falls kind of to the background when you don't hear him every week, and then just to have that drop, I mean, that was as sad as it gets. I mean, like you said, I'm a lifelong Browns fan. And all of the stories you hear are very, very true. If you're watching us right now, you're probably like me, like Spence here, like Jim Donovan is the soundtrack of our Brown life, and it's like, you think back to, even when I was growing up as a kid, I'm 27. He's been with the Browns for 25 years. So every single Browns football game I can remember was commentated by Jim Donovan. And like my favorite parts about it were like, oh, I'm at the game and I see Nick Chubb run for a touchdown, or I see, Braylon Edwards catch a touchdown, or Brady Quinn throw a touchdown, or Brandon Weeden throw one to Josh Gordon. Like whoever it is, you're like, oh, I want to hear Jim say that. Well, what did Jim say? And you get home, you get on Twitter, you get on YouTube, whatever, to go find it. And like, some of the ones with Nick Chubb for me, like Chubb Wubba Hub on the 95 yarder. Chubb's running to the river against the Bengals, and then obviously the one that was like, it gives me chills when you see it, and when you listen back to it, the COVID playoffs one was like, what is it? The only thing missing is all of you. Like, oh man, like he's so good, and it just was so sad. 68 years is way too young, and it's just like, man, you the Browns lose a member of their family, a member of the community, a member of this organization in a tragic way.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting about Jim is like he never gave off that he was going through what he was going through. He was always such a positive person, always such a positive spirit. And I said it earlier today, but you call a team's game for 25 years, and you'd think you'd have a lot more positive to have called in your time, like in terms of the team's success. Jim didn't have a lot of that, but the moments that were positive, the fans will remember forever. And those are the moments that I think stand out the most. And then even the moments that were bad, he had this unique way of like being able to be critical of the team without being like overly critical of the team. And I think like what he would say on the broadcast resonated with the fan base every single Sunday, every single game day. They felt like he really did speak for them. And that's such a unique thing, such a special thing to have as a broadcaster. I think that sort of speaks to when you make it to this stage and you really find your place. That's what it's all about. And Jim captured that perfectly. Like it is a tragic loss. And I do kind of go into this game now wondering if that inspires something in this Browns team to give you a performance today that's Jim Donovan worthy, and maybe they steal one against the Ravens. It's a tough matchup. We know all those things going in. There's been a lot of change this week. Before we get into more of the specifics, though, one big change that we sort of found out about today officially was that DeJuan Jones will be starting at left tackle. And there were some signs that was going to happen, but this kind of feels like a chance for him to potentially cement himself if he's going to be there for a while here, given the Jed Wills injury, to maybe prove that he can play that side. But obviously he's played poorly this year, so there's a little bit of holding your breath that goes on as well, hoping that he can man that side admirably and hold up and cover it, or hold up in protection for Jameis Winston.
Yeah, I'd say that's like in theory, like a positive. Like, all right, we got the wand over there, but because in our brains after last year, we built him up like he's Joe
Yeah,
Thomas.
we've been trying to get him over there for a while now, like just to
Yeah,
see what it looks like. Yeah.
and he's athletic enough. I think obviously he's athletic guy, but I think he's can move well enough to be serviceable over there. We'll see. Maybe it's maybe we strike lightning in a bottle again, or catch lightning in a bottle again with him, and maybe he is comfortable on the left side. We'll see. It's just you're so uncertain up front.
Yeah.
And we can get so excited about Jameis Winston and all the things and Nick Chubb's second game back. But if you can't block anything, we're going to be in for a long afternoon because the Ravens, as they always are, seems like it's a new year, same story with them because they're relentless at getting after the quarterback.
Yeah, seventh different iteration of a starting offensive line for the Browns this year, which speaks to the injury issues they've had and just some of the problems they've had up front, obviously, all year long. So the Ravens' defensive line, per usual, is very, very good. It's probably their bread and butter. They're a really good run-stopping team, and they do get some pressure on quarterbacks, which is something to keep an eye on. But on the flip side of that, man, Jameis is the style of quarterback, we've talked about this week, that can air it out downfield. And if Ken Dorsey, as he takes the calling sheet, is able to tap into that, that is an area of weakness for this Ravens team. On top of the fact that they're now going to be missing Wiggins, they're now going to be missing Humphrey in that secondary for Baltimore today. So a couple of key blows on the back end of things for them. There's a real opportunity here to do the thing that they've been saying they were going to do all season, which was we're going to take more deep shots. We hadn't seen that with Deshaun. Chance to do that today against a weaker secondary, and that could be the key to this Browns offense kind of getting going here and maybe stealing one in a game that nobody expects them to win where they're 8.5-point favorites against the Ravens.
Yeah, and I'd say too, like Jameis is the type of guy, and we know this, like he'll let it rip. It doesn't care if it doesn't go well early. He's going to be Joe Flacco-esque in that standpoint of, you think back to the Bears game last year where Flacco got off to a poor start, but he just kept letting it fly. Like that's going to be the vibe today, and they can really go with that. And it's that part, is definitely exciting because you see it in primetime last week when they played the Bucks. Baker got after him early and often. They were throwing the ball up and down the field until a couple injuries kind of stopped them a little bit. So I think
the interceptions that he threw, that didn't help either. But
yeah, that certainly did not help at all. But Marlon Humphrey got 2 of them. He's not going to be playing today, so that's big. Big for the Browns. But yeah, like you said, why not? We've been 9-point favorites so far this year. On the other side and gotten upset. There's been a handful of those throughout the NFL, and it's the line's actually moved down to 7 as of the time we're recording. So the public's talking. The public's certainly talking on that. But yeah, the ball's going to get kicked off, and it's you go out there and you just try to steal one and try to get a win here.
Yeah, and I do think another aspect of this is the uptick in usage for Nick Chubb. I don't know that's going to be a ton more today. He played 30 snaps last week. I'm going to probably guess maybe like 40 to 45 snaps. Maybe he would play this week. We'll see. But even his presence, I thought last week was worth the defense paying attention to. And I think that helps the offense in terms of trying to throw the ball downfield. Because if there's even a threat of Nick Chubb in the run game, that allows you to do a little bit more in the play action. And that's something that Jameis Winston can thrive in as well. So it's all very interesting in that regard as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, he said it even in his press conference sometime during the week this week. He's like, yeah, there's a ramp up period for me too. Like it's my first time running in a year, playing a football game in a year and a half, so I'd like to see him get more comfortable. Wyatt Teller comes back today too. So that'll be nice to see him up front. So there are some positives there. There are some opportunities, but for the Browns, this is going to be one. In my opinion, you don't match up very well against the Ravens. Obviously, we say all these things. We haven't touched on Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. And even though Mark Andrews has been down this year, he seems to just always kill the Cleveland Browns. Last time he was in Cleveland, he had 2 touchdowns. So it's like, yeah, that offense is so darn good. And it's going to take a little bit of a miracle for the Browns to get a win here, but nothing to say that can't happen. Before
we get to our predictions, I'll just add on the Ravens side of things. Like Lamar and Derrick Henry together is like an unstoppable duo. Browns have been bad at tackling at times. They have to be sound in that regard today. They cannot let those guys get in the open field, open space. But on top of that, like Lamar's playing some of the best football of his career, which is hard to believe because he's been an MVP already a couple times. And I think it's a big part of that is because he has Derrick Henry back there as a threat. So, Anthony, I said earlier this week with my prediction, Ravens 30, Browns 20. I'm walking this back a little bit. I think there's going to be some sort of like juju to this team because of the Jim Donovan news, and they're going to play some spirited football. On one hand, it's like, is there too much change this week with the quarterback, play caller, all these different things, new left tackle? On the other hand, though, like I think you could see a little bit of a spark from Jameis back there. So I'm changing my score a little bit. I'm going to say Ravens stay. I'm going to keep the Ravens at 30, but I'm going to say the Browns get to 28 this week and maybe lose on like a last-second field goal. Maybe I'm riding the wave a little bit too high here before the game kicks off, but I think they cover the spread at the very least.
I love it. I love it. And a heartbreaker, Justin Tucker does what he does best, in your opinion.
I can't pick him to win, man. I can't consciously do that.
I can't do it either. And
I'm going to give them the fact that they'll play an inspired game today.
I'm also changing mine. When did we send ours? On Friday. So
Friday,
obviously, I had Ravens 31, Browns 17. That's what I felt, and I won't. Yeah, I think it's going to be something close to that. I will say, though.
You're not going to give an extra touchdown for Jim?
I'm going to. We're getting over 20 points today. It was really nice this morning flipping through FanDuel and seeing like real numbers be associated with our guys, like 100 yards receiving or 237 is the number for Jameis over under. So it's like real NFL type numbers. So I'm excited to see our team look normal again this week with Jameis pulling the trigger. But I just think the Ravens are too much. We've talked about it a bunch. Maybe not on this show, but around Cleveland of like, hey, we do a good job of stopping Derrick Henry historically, but that's never when he's been paired with Lamar Jackson. Lamar's always been great against Cleveland, and so has been their receivers. They've been always just awesome against Cleveland. So it's going to be a really hard one today. Let's go 31. Ravens win 31-30 just for fun. We get a late score. Browns cover, though. I will say Browns are going to cover this afternoon.
We got Anthony to come around in the end. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us here from Huntington Bank Field pregame-wise. But I encourage you to hang out at the Cleveland Browns on SI YouTube channel. Subscribe to the channel. A lot more content from throughout the week of practice that you can click on, you can watch, you can see. And, of course, as always, I encourage you to follow along at si.com/NFL/Browns for all the best Browns coverage throughout the game today. We'll have you covered with everything that transpires on the field, off the field, in the locker room after the game. So be sure to head over there. For Anthony Moeglin, I am Spencer German, and we appreciate you guys jumping on in with us at Cleveland Browns on SI.